You are listening to the Fresh Take Network.
All right, what it is, what it do, welcome to Fresh Take. Joshua, Adam, William Arbuthnot, and I'm really very excited to introduce this guest. It took way too long to get him on. It probably should have been one of my initial guests. Ladies and gentlemen, University of Alberta head women's basketball coach, Scott Edwards.
Thanks, Josh, for having me on this podcast today. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Like I said, that should have happened a while ago.
It's all right.
I guess I should just put at the beginning there, my sister did play under you, so maybe there'll be a little bit more bias towards that kind of stuff. I'm not going to really talk about my sister's time there, but I guess just as a journalist's integrity, I should mention that just at the beginning there. But let's kind of just start off with the forefront of everything
Sure.
before we kind of get into your career and everything. What's this past year been? You know, we were talking about before on air, you guys were one of the first schools to get ahead of the COVID thing in the sense of to move ahead with like the cancel the games, move forward and kind of get your athletes ready to go forward that there wouldn't be a season.
Yeah, I was. It was a really big shock, obviously, for our athletes. U of A made a decision in May or June of last year, way before the rest of the conference did, around our ability to or desire to participate in Canada West. We canceled every sport, and that month, and I think it took about a month for me to connect with each family, to talk with each athlete, to kind of work through their academic plans. Some athletes who were entering their fifth year, we had time and space to allow them to grieve it almost before we had to come back to school. And they could make a decision if they were going to try to, lengthen out their careers academically, or they're going to take the year off. Some athletes did that and are going to come back. Other athletes decided to kind of plow through school now and figure out a pathway to graduate school, and then they'll do grad degrees afterwards. And it took a lot of moving parts and working with families, both parents and the athletes, to really come to a decision with each family around what was best for the athlete in their career. And I found it to be it was really a deep experience for me personally, to each family, like to sit and talk with each athlete about what they wanted to do in the future, and really get them thinking about things beyond just what does September look like. They're so used to, me giving them a calendar for the year and telling them exactly where they're going to be pretty much 365 days a year. And now we weren't in that mode. And so it was really fun to work through them and help them find some independence out of that, and to help them understand that no matter what decision they made, it was theirs, and no one was going to be upset if they chose not to play anymore. If they wanted to come back and extend their careers, great. Whatever we could do to support them. And it was a really, really interesting time. And then, coaching friends, like as the fall came around, you're like, hey guys, I think the season's going to get pulled. If you want to talk about how it went for us, go ahead, because I got some thoughts. And so that was a lot of fun too, talking with coaches and with our own athletes. And I felt like as the Canada West season got canceled and then U Sports got canceled, I know I'm talking to our athletes. I know they felt peace that their decisions had been made way before school started, and so they were feeling really good. And to be honest, like within U of A, we're really proud of the decisions our athletic department made.
Yeah, you guys kind of made news, at least in this province, for kind of jumping ahead of it. What was the situation as far as years go? Did you kind of pause a year? Because, in NCAA, some years were skipped. How did it work for you guys? If you were, let's say, a fourth year player, did you get to come back for your fit? Like, was your kind of paused? If you wanted to want to come back and add something to your education to continue to finish off your athletic career?
Yeah, that's sort of the way we looked at it. Exactly.
Okay.
Like let them kind of decide. Like we had some athletes who were entering their fifth year. Like we had one athlete as an example who had even missed a year because she had an ACL tear and missed an entire season early in her career. So she was really stretching her academic load anyway to do an undergrad. And so she just took the season off, like took the whole year off academically. And she did one class, I think, over both semesters, and she'll come back next season. And that was her version of how she wanted to do it. And other athletes sped their programs up so that they could finish early on their undergrads academically and then they could go to grad school. But none of that had any impact on their eligibility. That was just all paused. Whatever year they were in, it's paused, and they can return next season at whatever eligibility class they were in this year.
The plus side, you got the reign out being the coach of the year a little bit longer.
That's right. I think I'm the longest reigning coach of the year at one time. Yeah, I agree.
So what was kind of like the talks with your athletes during kind of this pause during the pandemic?
There was a lot of just self-reflection we spent the year trying to let them know that they need to work on them. Like, they needed to just spend the time they needed to deal with this as a human being, not as an athlete first, to figure out how they were going to manage school. Some athletes really thrived in this academic environment where they're kind of on their own timelines and their own schedules, and other athletes struggled with that and they needed different supports. And then on the athletic side of it, it was just such a herky-jerky start, right? September looks one way and October looks another way, and November was probably the best month of the entire year.
Dreaded January, hey? It's that January.
And then we go away there was a bit of a pause in Alberta just before exams, so we sort of shut down the end of November, but then we were off until February. So, and then again, we went for about 5-6 weeks where we got to do something, and then we're shut down again. And again, for our real hardcore type A athletes, which most are, the struggle of not knowing what was coming up and being able to plan everything for them was a big deal. We're handing out, I think I was on probably season plan 6 or 7 by January, and so it just is. We hope we never have to go through it again. I think every coach in the country would probably say they could write a book on how they handled things. I don't know if ours is the right way or not. I know what our intentions were and what we wanted to do for our athletes, and our biggest thing was their mental health and their physical health, and keeping them as safe and educated as possible on their decisions outside of practice or our environment, so that we kept everybody safe and healthy. And we had a pretty good year that way, to be honest. If that was the goal, I think we passed.
You hit on education again, like they are student athletes, first of all. So that was the main part that had to be focused on. It's going to be so interesting, though, if it looks like things are going towards September. Nothing's set in stone. I'm sure you'll be the first to admit that. But the interesting thing will be is you kind of have this weird recruiting bubble right now, like these super classes, right? It's very interesting. You had the whole past year of possible recruits, and then this whole year of possible recruits. What's that super bubble of recruits been like?
It's wild. We have we had 3 athletes on campus last year as first years. We had 1 international athlete who unfortunately couldn't get out of her country to come join us for the season, so that's still up in the air. And so we had technically 4 of them last season, and then we have 6 incoming athletes for next year. And so we're gonna have this massive bubble of athletes at U of A that all on paper look like their first years, and every school is gonna look like this. And these high school athletes, especially those grade 12s that missed the end of grade 11 and all of grade 12 season, and now they're going to be trying to come into university ball and be expected to be at a level that we would have expected them if they had that last 12, 14 months of training. And so they'll put that expectations on themselves. I think the coaches are going to take it a little differently, and we're just going to have to take it a bit slower and take it easy on them a little bit to kind of ramp them up. But it's going to be a very interesting, challenging time for the athlete and coaches at U Sports to deal with this bubble you said of athletes coming out, and then trying to deal with those grade 11 athletes and grade 10 athletes who are still talented and passionate and wanting to come into U Sports. Trying to find a spot for them to play is going to be very interesting in the future.
Yeah, I almost think some of those athletes may slip, and not a shot at the ACAC or anything like that, but some of them may fall down to that level for those first few years because they won't be able to make that cut, and they have to kind of work their way to get there, or they just feel like, hey, like you said, I missed my grade 12 here. Maybe it'd be better if I went to an ACAC level or a little bit, not the main U Sport level, to kind of get my legs back as far as basketball goes, and even academically as well.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Josh. I think that that's not a bad thing at all. I think like when I started at U of A and had come from the ACAC level, there was a lot of athletes that played, my 6 years in the ACAC, a lot of athletes that played 1-2 years at our level and then moved up. And it was good for all of them. And and I think that we could see another bubble of a group of athletes that end up in that same boat where they start in the ACAC level, and then as spots open up for them on the U Sports rosters and kids graduate, you could see the roster spots opening. I think the other thing that is unknown, and I think every team at every school in every sport's going to deal with, is the realities of our third, fourth, and fifth year athletes next year in their academic lives or just in their personal lives, if they, how much longer they're going to play. This pause showed people a lot about themselves, and I think we'll see some athletes decide to hang it up early and not finish out their careers. And I, who's to say if it's a right or wrong decision? I just think we could see that as a real possibility across the league.
You're definitely going to see vastly different rosters all over the country. That is for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. I totally agree. Like, even styles of play, and if you remember rosters of this team that you got used to playing this team because of these athletes, well, they're not going to be there, or they're going to be there a much shorter period of time than we anticipated, and the league's just going to look pretty wild over the next few years, I think.
Even evaluating like your roster compared to where you could go year by year, everything's so different. Everything's so up in the air because, again, those two sets of recruits. Yeah. Let's take it all the way back now and get more into the your side. So where was your kind of the first love of basketball for you as a young kid?
UVic, watching games when I was a little kid. I grew up on Vancouver Island. I remember going to McKinnon Gym and watching the Vikes play like as many times as I could when I was a kid. Went to camps. Eli Pasquale is probably my hero in basketball, and I looked up to that guy more than any NBA guy, more than anything else, more than any star in the NCAA. Eli Pasquale was my hero, and I fell in love with the game watching him and those great Ken Shields coached Vike teams back in the '80s, and that put the love of the game in it for me. I wasn't a very good player. Your sister would agree to that, but I really loved the game, but I just wasn't really talented at it, so I didn't get an opportunity to play past high school. But played some high school ball and loved that, and then that's where that love of the game came for sure.
Were you in Vic around a time when Nash was playing at all?
Yeah, I was in high school the same time as him, but luckily missed having any games against him. It wasn't
right. Yeah. Was
Was
the buzz kind of there about this kid out of Victoria, like how good he was?
Oh yeah. I think if I remember, like the closest we got, I think we were supposed to be the next team they played when him and his buddy transferred from Mount Doug to Smooth. So probably got away with one there. It could have been an ugly night for me. He was a very very much talked about in the limelight athlete on the island. It's a small place, and when people step out of the norm and do something great on the island, it's talked about a lot. And so he was even a public figure back then.
And then you end up going to college at the U of A. What made you leave the island to go to the U of A?
Just a chance to get away, try something new. I had some friends who were athletes on different teams at U of A, and they were having a great experience. And then I decided I'd kind of follow up here and see that, to see what it was all about. It was a little ways away from home, but not that far away. I could, fly home in a quick, short trip, and fell in love with it. When I got here, I did my whole undergrad here and started teaching here just because I had such a great experience, such a welcoming city and good community, great city to go away to school at. And I just had a lot of fun.
And then you didn't play here. You said, did you think, you could have made the roster, or do you think your talent was going to keep you from
There's a 0% chance I could have made that roster, Josh.
Yeah.
They were back-to-back national champs at the time.
Right.
Horwood's teams were really good. I had no shot at that roster.
No. Was there something around that time? Did you have a closeness to the team that kind of brought you to an interest in coaching? Because I know you eventually go on to teaching. Where did the interest from coaching come?
Well, I had one of my friends that grew up on Vancouver Island with me was on the Pandas team for a few years here at U of A, and then was dating the big star on the Golden Bears team. So her and I would kind of go to the games every night and watch him play and watch the team play, and so we stayed connected through her really to that team, but not really anything formal or anything. I didn't get into coaching through the Bears or anything like that. Really traditional route of a high school coach, right? Get hired in Edmonton public schools, and they always need teachers, and it's always better if the teachers come from within the school itself. And so, I started off at a taught my whole career at a junior high in Edmonton public schools. It had a great group of teachers, really passionate, educators, but plus a lot of people who had sport backgrounds. So a lot of us were really passionate about sport, and so it was a really fun young staff to work with. And all those people kind of got me into coaching. I'd say just by osmosis, just being around them all. Everyone was so passionate about their sports and took everything they did really seriously. And so that was really, um, a really fun way for me to get into coaching, just around people and friends that were into it, and we could run ideas off each other every day in a variety of different sports, and picked up basketball there at the junior high level to start with.
And then how did Concordia come about?
Yeah, a friend of mine who needed an assistant coach, and I probably happened to be the one person in town that he knew that wasn't married yet, didn't have kids yet, had the time in the day that could get over there and help out. I would say that, and I tell recruits this too, that the way and even like if I do coaching clinics, my pathway to a university job is not a normal one. I didn't have the playing background into being an assistant or third assistant, move up to second assistant, move up to lead assistant over years of time, and being mentored by somebody. I didn't really have that opportunity. I got mentored by the people I worked with, like, feet in the fire. The head coach I worked with at first, Gary, and then the men's coaches at the time, Chris Nichols up at Grand Prairie Regional College, and Dave Drabiak, who's now at Augustana. Those guys were great to me when I got started, and kind of included the one person who had no experience with them in all their conversations, allowed me to learn from all of them. And then and Gary left after the first year to move on to other things, and then the Concordia just offered me the job to be the head coach then, and I'd been pretty heavily involved with all the recruiting for the next year's team, so I kind of felt like I think they felt like I would probably be the best one to keep around there for that group of athletes. And yeah, I ended up being the head coach there for 6 years, and it was probably the best thing the athletic director did there at that time, especially because I was so young, was he only gave me 1 year contracts. So no
Wow.
matter how well we did, I was always having to prove myself, right? So it was almost like I was an athlete again, and I had to really prove it year in and year out that I could make this team better. And we were fortunate enough to improve our record. I think every season I was at Concordia, we had a better winning record, and culminated with a national championship in my 5th year there. So yeah, from an expansion team of Concordia to a national champion in 6 years was a pretty cool group of
That's
people to be around.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
What was the biggest kind of shift you learned from your 1 year as assistant going right to head coach? What was like the biggest kind of gap that you kind of experienced and learned during that time?
I think that to anyone that would have coached against us back then, the knowledge gap I had as a coach was probably pretty significant. I think I showed a lot of energy and passion, and I probably recruited really hard, and I got very used to being told no. So I got over that part of recruiting pretty easily. But the knowledge gap on the court, the X's and O's, the tactical information I needed to gain was a big jump for me, and I worked really hard away from the game in the spring, summer times to get myself ready every season throughout there. That period of time was 12 months a year of just basically an in-service for myself, just seeing every clinic I could be at, every provincial team tryout I could get into, just to observe whether it was men's tryouts or women's tryouts. I was at every one of them just to learn from the coaches who are running those clinics, and so that I could kind of figure out who I was as a coach, and what I liked about the game, how I envisioned my teams playing. I had to learn from everybody, but I had to do it on the job. So probably a lot of mistakes. If you talk to the athletes who play for me in those first few years at Concordia, I'm sure they'd agree. There was a lot of mistakes on my part, but done with a lot of heart and passion, I think they would say as well.
Yeah, like you said, a great learning experience.
Yeah.
So you're on these 1 year contracts, which makes it, I guess, easier to make the move to U of A. But how did that all come about? Obviously, you're around Concordia.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go to not the big leagues, but you go to one of the prominent universities in Canada in the U of A.
Yeah, that was a bit of a shock. I mean, I was. It's sort of funny to say this now, but it wasn't until we won our national title at Concordia that year I would realize that maybe this is something I could do for a job. Like, I don't just have to stay being a teacher and a coach. And I was coaching and teaching at my school as well as Concordia the whole way through. And then after we won our national title, and some jobs at the U Sports, then CIS, came open, and I applied for and had some interviews at places, and some of them seemed like a good fit, others didn't. And just looking at what my options would be, realizing maybe there would be some opportunities for me. At that time, I'd gotten to know Trix Baker with the Pandas, obviously through, you know, through the league and her recruiting of college athletes at the time. Got to know her really well, and and she had decided kind of the winter of 2006, she decided that she was going to take a sabbatical year for 2006-07. And I'm sure I wasn't the first choice for the job at the time. It fell through from a couple of people, I think, but she came to me and said, "Would you mind taking the team for the year?" And I said, "Sure, I'll take a leave of absence from the school board and leave Concordia and try this out and see if at the time I thought, well, at least I could say I was a youth sports coach for a season if the next time I go to interview somewhere else, and see if that would help in the process of maybe getting a full-time job." And so that's how I got started there.
And then a bunch of coach of the years later, you're still there.
Yeah, so it ended up working out pretty good. Like that first Pandas team, I mean, we were a young team, kind of, well, not, yeah, like a middle-aged team. A lot of third years who played really prominent roles. One phenomenal fifth-year athlete, a few fourth years that were really invested, and we had a really hungry group of freshmen too. And that team just gelled. Like they were talented enough, and they got it. They got everything about it. They were kind of sick of losing. They lost a few games that they really wanted back from the two previous seasons of that, and they'd kind of gotten to understand the league really well, and they were hungry. And we made it all the way to the national final. We lost it, but we made it to the national final that first year. And then the following year, Trix decided to extend her leave of absence for another season, so they kept me on another year, which was nice of them.
Were you able to start recruiting at that? Like, when did you start recruiting for them? Was it right away when you came in, or was Trix still doing a little bit of recruiting on the side as well?
Trix did the recruiting in that first year. I wasn't really involved with the first group until the spring of 2006. And I brought one athlete in from the coast who ended up having a heck of a career. And then, starting in that second year, I really, Trix and I talked. She said, just start recruiting the athletes you want. I think now, looking back on it, she was probably kind of gearing up to retire, and I knew that later, but I didn't really at the time. And so, but she kept telling me, and she was so wonderful to me. I've had lots of people coaching friends who've taken over programs for a year, and sometimes the coach that leaves still wants to have a lot of say, and rightfully so. It's their program. And even though at the time it was still Trix's program, what she allowed for me, which was great, was that I was allowed to just coach it the way I wanted to, run the program the way I wanted to, run the team the way I wanted to, recruit the athletes I wanted to. And I'd run it by her, but she was really, really supportive and kind of quite hands off. And I was really, and as you talk to more coaches in your life, it's hard for us to be hands off. So I commend her for giving a young coach that opportunity. And then she decided to retire, and so then it was all on me to start recruiting. And then players like your sister come into my life, so right away there.
What was the difference between recruiting at the ACAC level and then when you go to U of A? What was obviously, there's some players that just aren't going to go there, but was there a major difference in how you recruited? And
it was a real eye opener for me at first. First off, every time I phoned somebody, they knew where my school was and who we were. So that was nice. Yeah. I didn't have to explain myself. Concordia is such a small school, and it just really started athletics when I got started there. So while that was fun, it was really trying to find the niche in recruiting for a small institution like that. It took a little time. For U of A, it opened up a whole different world of athletes for us that, across the country recruiting. I could recruit from, Newfoundland to British Columbia, and people knew where our university was. They knew who we were. They may not know much about the program. That's for me to tell them about, but they knew at least enough about the school. So that was the biggest leap, was understanding that I didn't have to explain myself all the time about who we were. But the next part was, are you really going to be there long term? Is that, is the coach coming back, the previous coach, or are you going to be the head coach? And then they put that aside. And so then Trix retired, and they named me the head coach. And so I didn't, jump that hurdle. And then after that, it was really just trying to find an identity of the type of people I wanted to come play for us, and the athletes, and making sure they fit academically for our school.
Outside of just the talent, what was some things you looked for when you were recruiting?
It's a good question. I really like unique personalities, probably more than anything. I really look for people that are going to challenge me, challenge our environment, bring something to the group that is unique. I think a lot of people, and this is probably true, that a lot of teams' culture, identity of the athletes usually take on a lot of the personality of the head coach. if you're an outgoing person and a really outgoing coach, you usually have a lot of outgoing players on your team. If you're a little more introverted or quiet, you might have, some more introverted or quiet athletes. I'm pretty outgoing and fun-loving guy, so I probably have a lot of athletes that kind of fit that realm. And so I really just look for people that I connect with. There's obviously, you're right, like there's a certain level of athleticism, basketball IQ,
Yeah.
skill set that that's got to be a minimum. But after that, it really comes down to personality fit for me, and do they fit the group, and will they bring something unique and challenging to the collective that gives everyone a great experience, right? So the more fun we have together, the more, the more energetic they're going to be at training, the more passion they're going to bring to the games, and hopefully we're going to win more games if they love each other. So we're just trying to find the type of athletes that are going to fit into a group that really get what team sport is all about. And it's not easy when you're young to understand what a team sport looks like, sounds like, feels like on a daily basis. And because sometimes that means you don't get what you want, right? And
Yeah.
that's the hardest part for athletes, is to understand that I was this big star in high school, and that's great, but so was everybody else on your team. And so how are you going to find your niche within that? That's as I've evolved as a recruiter too, having more of those conversations, like the way I would have talked about it 10, 12 years ago versus how now the way I talk about it. Probably, I think our athletes are a little more prepared for what's coming to them now than they would have been back in the day.
It's so interesting you mentioned that of, that star player coming in. As I've kind of done a side of this of broadcasting, you kind of get the same mold every single year of one person being that person. You just see the same person all the time and be like,
Mm-hmm.
they feel, and I'm sure there's a bunch, like they feel like they know better, and you slowly, like by the end of the year, I'll see where it is. Like, do you kind of just let them kind of have their way for a little bit before you kind of, like, if it gets out of control, you kind of wind it and push it back a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's evolved too, Josh.
Yeah.
My ability to handle those personalities. I keep saying I got interviewed a while ago too, and I said, like, the person or the coach I was in 2006-07 is not the same person coach I am now, and I think that's probably a good thing. Um, and my expectations of the athletes haven't changed, but maybe the way we go about it's different, or the way we're going to handle those personalities of players who really think quite highly of themselves versus ones that you need to build up. That's probably evolved quite a bit over time. And like you said about people you see coming in your world, like you can kind of start to see the personalities, understand where they're headed with the way the decisions they're making. And so my job, I see, is just try to, I'm not a parent, I'm not their parent, so I'm not going to helicopter over them, but I do kind of need to be behind them, making sure they're picking the right pass all the time. And once in a while, I got to let them stub their toes and fall down and scrape their knees and figure that out afterwards too.
Those year-end meetings, I'm guessing you go from the start of the year and hoping that you do see a little bit of growth in those year-end. By the time you get to those year-end meetings, that you can, and then even from those year-end meetings, hoping that you can have growth from over the summer to the fall meeting.
Yeah, and like that's totally. Yeah, the athletes that have been successful, those athletes that last 5 years playing any youth sport. So ours is basketball, so we'll talk about that. Like those athletes that can make it through the struggles of a first year where they came in as their big star. Maybe they're from, especially like kids are from pretty small places who they've been told their whole lives they're going to be the best, and maybe they're at a school where they're the biggest star the school's had in a while. That's really hard for them to transition into university and then suddenly be told you're the 12th man and you're not going to play much tonight. And the athlete that can last through that experience and the struggle mentally, emotionally, and physically around what that feels like, to then go put the work in the spring, summertime, to come back in the fall and say, am I better now? Can I get some more time now? And maybe it's not quite even yet her turn. And then, those athletes that can keep putting that work in every year. I mean, there's a reason we celebrate them so much at the end of their careers, because it's we just have such high respect for them. There's the odd athlete where it comes in and they're playing a ton right from the first year on, but that's usually pretty rare. Especially at the high level in our league. Like if you're a team that's vying to get to nationals all the time, it's very rare that an athlete in their first year is going to come in and make a big impact on the team. But it doesn't mean we can't put things in place to support them and help them and help them grow in that off season, send them home for the summertime. Here's the things we want you to work on. There's a simpatico that goes between the two of you that you got to work on it together. And the biggest thing and probably the thing I worked on the hardest since I got this job is learning how to build trust with my athletes and building a relationship with them, so that they know that no matter what happened on the court on any random Friday night game, that it doesn't change how I feel about them as a human being. and that when we come back to work on Monday, I'm still pushing you and challenging you to be the best version of yourself so you can go out and get what you want out of this sport. But here's what, trying to find that balance of also, here's what's best for the team right now, right? There's a big difference.
Have you had a favorite, without maybe naming names, have you had like a favorite recruiting class?
Oh, like you put that one out there, and Katie's class was pretty special.
Yeah.
that one was a really special class, both talent wise
And I think there was a tug of war for,
yeah.
not to like pat you on the back, but I just look at you as a young coach at that point, right? And you're going
Yeah.
against Shawnee for two of the prominent guards from Calgary, and you take them from their city, from the Dinos team that was good. It was a good Dinos team with Shawnee and Claire, who had stroke in basketball, and here comes you taking it. I think at that time, it did shock a lot of people that this young upstart coach took two of the most prominent point guards in Calgary and took them up to Edmonton.
Yeah, I think, I benefited from getting to coach them on provincial team for sure. And it's not easy to coach provincial team and then turn around and recruit your athletes. It's really not an easy thing. And so I try to warn all young coaches as they're coming through the system, if you're going to go on the provincial team program and then go to recruit the same athletes to your team, it's not just the ones who are starting on your team you're going to be going after. It's the athletes who don't play much on that provincial team, or even athletes that you cut from the provincial team that you'll still also go after for university. So how you treat these people in that time period is really critical. And so again, coming back to building relationships, and that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed, there's a Dinos Pandas rivalry, right? So I enjoyed taking those kids out of Calgary and see what they could do it up here for us with the Panda program. And they had great kids and they had great careers.
You talked about that provincial team. I think, looking back in hindsight, if the injuries didn't occur that you had, I think, non-biased, I can even say, I think you maybe would have had a championship that year in provincials, but injuries to a lot of key players just kind of wore you guys down. I think that BC game was kind of like the finals in a lot of way for Alberta.
Yeah, it was it was one of those great magical nights, right? Really, really impressive, really uber talented BC team who just kind of run roughshod over the competition all summer. And here's this, we had a talented team out in Alberta for sure. And you're right, we got beat up, but the heart and grit those athletes showed to beat that BC team that summer. You're right, that was our national final, right? Beating BC that year, and then we just ran out of gas for the final, and had so many kids running on fumes, and I'll never forget that group. There's a really special group of people that just fought for each other, and I was blessed that a lot of them ended up coming and choosing U of A. So we had a good run for the next group after that at U of A because of the probably the bonds that they created and the experience they had together, fighting like so hard for each other on provincial team. I think they wanted to see what it would look like at the university level, and it was a good era. It was a lot of fun back then.
Well, I believe with Steph Vermont got hurt in that, and she ends up going to BYU. She got hurt, and then the two, well, Caitlin Arbuthnot. She gets hurt as well. So then you get to Ontario, and then it's just like, I think I don't know if that's one. I'm sure you have a few, and I was going to get to like, what are some losses that like you get to that Ontario one, and I'm sure you're like, if we had Steph and maybe Katie healthy, maybe we could have been Ontario, because it seemed Katie, for people that don't know, gave everything she could, and then her ankle was just done at that point. And then Steph was just hurt as well. I can't remember. I think Alex Cole may have been injured as well at that point.
Yeah, well, Gong Show, Steph Vermont was coming into each game on crutches.
Yeah.
She rolled her ankle really bad and would walk into the gym on crutches, play the game and leave on crutches. And instead of that, your sister's leg was bothering her. Ended up having a stress fracture. We played her on a stress fracture in the leg.
Yeah.
Josie Peacock had wrecked an ankle.
Bulldog, Josie Peacock. What a bulldog.
Alex Coley, right? She got a concussion, but didn't tell anybody. This is sort of before the days that we were really checking for that stuff.
Yeah.
But she got a concussion between the final and semi and the final. Didn't tell me. I thought it was weird in the final. Like, she just doesn't seem here, right?
No, she didn't.
I don't know where she is. Nicole was injured too. I think she rolled her ankle a little bit too. And we were just decimated by injury. But
you're like the Toon Squad at the end of Space Jam at that point.
Yeah, exactly right. And I remember even like, not to toot your sister's horn too badly, because that's not my job, but her coming down the bench to me and Carla and saying that she's got another shift in her while she's bawling after crying on the court because her leg hurt so bad. I'll never forget moments like that with athletes, right? Those are incredible. And so it's a funny thing, like you lose a national final, I think it's heartbreaking. I'm not sure I was heartbroken by that one, other than for those athletes who had put so much in, I just think that group did as much as they could under the circumstances that they had, and they showed, our Canadian basketball world the grit that the Alberta kids had at that time, and that was a lot of fun. I mean, I've had some heartbreakers in my career, obviously, but that one almost has a kind of a weirdly special feeling to me too, because it was such a neat group.
How has your connection been with coaching the provincial team, and then to the larger side of seeing Canada basketball as well, and your connection to Canada basketball as a whole as well?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't coached in the provincial team program for quite a while now, but I did, did 5 or 6 summers with provincial team, and then my wife made me take a year off in the summer to try and go do something else, which was probably a smart idea. And and then I started up doing national team, which was great. I worked really hard to try and get into the national team pool. I did the same kinds of things I had done as a young coach trying to come up into the provincial team pool. I went and paid my own way to Toronto to go to the tryouts. I'd sit on the bench. I'd get water bottles. I'd wipe up the floor. I'd run the clock. I'd run drills. I'd do whatever the coaches on the national team in the junior, they didn't have cadets quite yet, but the junior program. And then when they built the cadet program too, just being out there and around it, trying to help out as much as I could until they'd give me a shot at that too. And I was lucky enough to, I went to a FISU Games, which is like FISU Games, for those who don't know, is more like a mini Olympics for university age athletes. And we got to go to China for that and be on a staff with Shawnee Harley and Lisa Tamayas, which was an amazing experience working with those amazing coaches. And then I did 2 rounds of the junior cycle, so the U18, U19, and then U18, U19 again. So you do U18 FIBA America Championship and qualify for the World Championship if your country's lucky enough. And then we happened to qualify both times for the World Championships. And so, basketball started taking me not from, this little coaching experience just in Alberta to, junior high level, to now I'm coaching college in the province, and now I'm coaching provincial team, was taking me across the country, and now I'm coaching university, and it's taking me across the country, and all of a sudden the game started to take me around the world. And pretty lucky guy to get to do that.
Did you, with the Canada stuff, who were the more prominent women's Canadian players that you got to coach in that team?
Yeah, there's a number of them now. Bridget Carleton, who's with Minnesota right now, Lynx, who's my, one that she was on our last junior team. Shay Colley was on that team too. I think they're both in the hunt to make the Olympic team this summer for sure. There's been a number of them that were just phenomenal.
Was Kia on one of those teams?
Pardon me?
Was Kia Nurse on one of those teams?
No, Kia actually got pulled up to the seniors. So she was age eligible for our junior team that won Worlds, but she was good enough to make the seniors. So she got pulled up and she played with the senior group in their qualifications, and that was really important for her development. So
yeah,
she wasn't with us, but we had a good group. Jamie Wisner was in that group, and after she had got her Canadian citizenship and joined our team, Ruth Hamblin. We had some phenomenal players that came through that have been with the senior group now. It's kind of fun now that the senior groups in Edmonton, a lot of the women that I coached in the junior programs are now in that senior pool. So getting to see them every summer when they train here is a lot of fun.
The growth for Canada basketball, especially for the women, I think the men are finally kind of catching up, but the women were far ahead of where we saw that in the last Olympics, right? Where the women were far ahead.
Yeah, and I think credit to it was a whole systemic thing that Canada basketball did on the women's side to get us where we were before.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems simple. If people are watching this now, I think, well, Canada qualifying for cadets or junior worlds seems a given now, but it wasn't a given back when I was doing it. It was a real issue, but whether or not we would qualify on any given year for a world championship, and certainly not thinking about going and medaling at the world championships back then. So this is like 2011, like a decade ago. But they started with the NITA program where they brought our best junior kids to Hamilton. They all lived together for a while, that first group. And then they started doing more of the CP work around the provinces and aligning the provinces to basketball so that when the athletes got to national team camp, there's some higher expectations, but they knew what those expectations would be like. Phenomenal infrastructure that was put in place by Mike McKay and Denise Dignard towards aligning all the provinces was really important. I think we have a small population in the country, but a lot of geography, right? So it's a really difficult process. And I think on the women's side, anyway, it started there, just getting everything aligned first. And then you see, so the quality, maybe the quality of coaching got better for those age group athletes. And they were able to not when they got to those teams, but before, when they were younger, they were getting coached better and coached up, and the coaches that they were getting in their club levels were understanding what they needed to be like to play at the national level. And then the athletes started to get a buzz that we could be pretty good. And you think that first group, like Natalie Achonwa and the Plouffe twins in that group have been in our significant parts of our national program still, kind of laying the foundation for that next group of athletes to come through. And so many women that I coached in that junior group that are playing pro now, when we weren't ever having pros play in the biggest leagues, right? They weren't staying over in Europe. And, we're one of the few countries that doesn't have a domestic league. And so our women have to make a choice to go to play in Australia, or a choice to go to Europe and live far away from their families, or maybe what they wanted to do with their lives academically or professionally on top of basketball. And so it's a big stretch for them. But you saw that era of athletes starting to think that this could be a thing they did past university. So that was really cool to see. And credit to Canada Basketball for Lisa and Allison before her, kind of aligning and talking to the universities across Canada and in America to help allow our athletes to come back and train and represent Canada. They instilled a lot of passion and pride around wearing the maple leaf. And so, I think the guys, you're right, I think they're starting to catch up, but there was a pride in the women to play in our national team program, and nobody missed any summer, right? So we were getting the best of the best and taking our shot with them. And so that was kind of neat to be involved with at the beginning of it. And I can remember, when Canada qualified for the Olympics, when Allison had the group, and I remember being at a junior and cadet tryouts, and Kia and those athletes being in the room with us watching our women play at the Olympics and looking at their faces. And it was funny, we, like, the coaching staffs almost had, from the six of us that were there and the other support staff, all had to sort of teach those athletes how to cheer for Canada. Like, we had to show them it was okay to kind of go nuts and scream and yell when we did something well, and then just to get into the games, because they just sat there like just watching the games. But by the end of that tournament, and that was just, we happened to watch games every day in our camp. Those kids you knew they were all in. Like, you could see it in their eyes that they wanted to be, they want to be the next Kim Smith, right? So, you still see Kia and doing the things she's doing. It's amazing. And then watching that next group come up was really cool to watch. So lots of great experiences from them, amazing young women that have gone on to do big things for Canada. And I hope they get their opportunity this summer in the Olympics, because I really think they got a shot at winning a medal. And honestly, if not the whole thing, I think they're a really talented group, and they're very committed to each other, and they got all the pieces they need. And from the sports science through the coaching through the athletes that we have in our pool right now, I think that there's high expectations, but it's not unjust expectations. They're a really, really good group, and I'm looking forward to seeing them this summer.
Well, like you said, I hope it happens too. I mean, the men's will have their qualifying coming up here as well. We have a chance to see both Canadian basketball teams have a chance to medal this year if the men are able to qualify, which, losing Jamal Murray, obviously a big blow to that, but still having guys like Alexander and RJ Barrett and Wiggins and Dort and names go on and on. They have a great chance.
They got a great shot at it too. It'd be awesome to have both of them there at the Olympics for sure.
And then kind of going back to the women, I think, the women game this past 5 years, we're coming to the 25th anniversary of the WNBA. By the way, $17 for the WNBA League Pass for the year. Steal of all sports streaming. You're not going to get a better deal with that. No. But like, it's kind of funny, the NCAA had the tournament this year, and everyone's like, oh, this women's Final Four was really good. It's like, it's been kind of the sneaky, like, really good, better Final Four for like the last 5 years, going to the Notre Dame game against UConn a few years ago with the buzzer beater there with, I cannot pronounce her name, so I'm not going to be able to, but she's in WNBA now. But like, I think and then, what Sabrina's been able to do and her next level of producing, what Kia's able to do. And it's great to see Kia here, take it on the broadcast side and take it on on the court as well. It's unbelievable. And now you're starting to see Sue and Taurasi start getting their kind of love. The women's game, I don't know why it took so long, but it seems as we get to this 21st anniversary of the WNBA, with everything that happened in the Final Four this year and the past years, that the women's game is finally slowly being kind of fully embraced finally, and started maybe with that WNBA hoodie kind of being a nice style side, but the women's game has really evolved the past 5 years.
Yeah, I think I will give credit in little ways, and this is a direct shot at NCAA men's coaches. You need to get over yourself and embrace FIBA basketball. I think the biggest thing for the NCAA women is the style of play has changed so much and embraced FIBA basketball. So the rules is what I'm talking about. The way that we play with the shot clock, the reset, the backcourt, the game is faster and more fun. And so what you're seeing more, what it's done is take the game out of the hands of coaches and put it into the athletes. So we have great athletes in our sport. And now what you've seen, we've seen it all in Canada forever and in Europe, but now you're seeing the NCAA women's getting to see the game be put in the hands of the players instead of coaches. So you're seeing their athleticism show up. And I think the men's NCAA really needs to take a strong look at just dropping their rules and go straight to FIBA if they want to continue to be a marketable product. The athletes are there, but the faces change over so fast. It's not going to be about the individual players any longer. It's got to be about the quality of the product, and their product is laboring under the rules they play under. But on the women's side, man, you just see, and part of it too is that we get to see those athletes play year after year after year, so you can build up, and that's really good for us. And we have that in Canada, have that in NCAA. Women's now you're seeing those players come through, but I really think it had a lot to do with the systemic change they put in, and the women's game in the U.S. decided to they're not completely FIBA, but they're close enough now that you're seeing more of the athleticism of the players come through and the basketball IQ, and so all the teaching is done before they play, so the athletes can just go out and do their thing, and then that's led into just more confident players into the WNBA. The other thing too is it's the elite of the elite in the WNBA. There's not enough teams for the quality of players that we have available throughout the world. And so the quality of play at that level is unbelievable and a really marketable product that people want to see. And, you're right, Josh, like $17 to go watch WNBA basketball is nothing. That's
for the season. League pass is $30 for a month. Like, it's exactly crazy.
Yeah, I know. Like, I spent that at a food truck today. So, get out and support and watch, and you see, because the games are still, like, you're right, a couple years ago we see those great NCAA games, big buzzer beaters. It's always fun when Goliath gets knocked off, right? Like, if a UConn loses, it's always better for the tournament. It may not be better for Kia and her teams at UConn at the time, but it's better for the tournament, better for interest in the game. But you still have to have a team that's there all the time. So all credit to UConn and that program, what they do. But those sort of things generate publicity, and they've been really good about pushing it out. And I think that, the other part too, in the last couple of years anyway, I mean, the women, the WNBA players have just been so good in the community. They're so good in social media. They're so good about talking about things that matter to real life people and getting them being a part of a community. I think that it's a bit of a throwback to, a long time ago where the athletes would have been in their communities on the men's side. And so you see them doing this in their community, and they're doing all this great stuff, and now they're getting rewarded with, challenging the norms in TV sports to put our games online and to see them more often. I think it can only get better, and it will continue to get better, because I think these sports marketing companies are seeing the value and benefit of putting these athletes on TV, getting them in front of a camera, listen to their stories. They're great stories. They're great people. And now you're getting to see them as athletes, and the games are so much more fun to watch.
Well, and during Black Lives Matter, they were one of the best, if not ahead of any other league, of how to handle things. We saw, women like Maya Moore leave the game to go and believe what she believes in socially. So on that side, they've just knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, they've been unbelievable. Natasha Cloud with the Washington Mystics. I went and spent a week with the Mystics a few years ago.
Oh, wow.
That was a really neat experience, just to watch them train for a week, and unbelievable coaching staff there that allowed us to be like just fly on the wall for everything they did for a week's time, and getting to observe her for that week and watching the person she was becoming. She was a younger player then, but you could see the leadership in her and the confidence she had in herself, and watching her evolve into the person who was a real leader, along with Maya and a few others in the league that really took a stand. And having got to spend a week with her and watch her like that, it was really cool to watch who she's becoming, and a bit of a face, and she'll always have a place in my heart, and I cheer loudly for the Mystics still, just because I got to watch them.
She's definitely growing. Was Deladone on the team at that point?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my girl.
Yeah, she's an amazing person. And Josh, like, she deserves every accolade she could get. She is a true professional. She is a amazing ambassador for her sport, her community, people around her. She's just I can't have enough good things to say about her. The way she treated me and the other coach I went with, just first class all the way. They were amazing to us the whole time.
So it's kind of, we're going to wrap it up pretty fast soon here, but just kind of bring it back to U of A. You have a silver medal, you have a bronze medal, you have numerous coaches of the year. That national championship has eluded you.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, that darn Tamidas over in Saskatchewan's kicking my butt lately. I got to figure out a way to get her one day. but yeah, it's been difficult. I mean, like when I came in, Canada West was the preeminent conference in the league across the country, and it seemed like whoever made it out of Canada West was going to be a medalist at nationals, and we were involved with that era too, and had our place, but couldn't quite get over the hump then either. Now the schools across the country, the game has just risen so much in the last decade. It's really cool to see that there's not one of any 2 or 3 teams that could win it anymore. It's usually like 5 to 12. You never know. In any given year, there could be as many as 8 to 10, 12 teams that could be in the hunt for the title. And it all comes down to who's hot at the right time of the year or who's healthy at the right time of the year. I mean, we've gone to nationals and overperformed. We've gone to nationals and underperformed. We've gone sick. We've gone injured. We've gone healthy, and you just don't know what's going to happen when you get to that tournament. And you got to play your best basketball when you get there. And we've got to, as a program, we've got to figure out how to get over that next little hump of how do we get from being at the tournament consistently to winning the tournament, and that's a big leap.
Obviously, it's hindsight is 2020, but if 2021 happened, did you believe you had that team that could make that jump?
Interesting to see. Like I liked the team a lot, but we were going to be quite a bit younger than we had been 2 years ago. So 2019-20 team had a really old group. We graduated 4 athletes who finished all 5 years playing here, and so lost a lot of experience. I think we could have been really good by the end of the season. We would have had Emma Carey come back off her injury, and she was a really talented player. So I liked the group. We would have been really good. I don't know where we would have ended up because of how we would have started. I think it would have been a bit of a rough start for that group, but super energetic and passionate and athletic as heck. So I look forward to seeing them all next year because it's going to be pretty fun.
So, I mean, like you said, it's such an interesting career. You go to Concordia, get the head coach job, then you get to go right to U of A. You coach the provincial team. You've had time with Team Canada. Outside of the national championship, what's left for your basketball goals?
Yeah, that's really honestly that is the one, right? I got to win a national title before I leave U of A. So that's really the last carrot. I mean, I've coached at every level I possibly can. It'd be nice to see if I could get on a senior staff, but there's lots of really quality people in that ahead of me on that queue. So I'm not so stressed or worried about that. But what's challenging and pushing me as a coach now is trying to give athletes their best experience of life, right? So wanting to make these 5 years something special for them, learn a lot about themselves, challenge themselves, grow as a human being so they go on and make the rest of their lives great. Year to year, I try to set those goals for myself around that side of things that we're going to kind of help everybody grow as a human being. And that's our biggest thing I'm proud of on a year to basis. But that carrot at the end, Josh, at the end of the day, we are still trying to win a national title. And, we've been close lately, but it's time to try to find a way to get over the hump. And I'm really excited about the group we have coming in next year and who we can be and see who that group's going to be into the future because the group's going to be together for a while. And excited to see where this group's going to take us. I think it's pretty special.
In all your time there, you've been substantially in the women's world. Have there ever been a offer to jump to the men's side?
One time at Concordia when coaching, there was a coaching change there. He asked me, I was really young in my career, he asked me if I wanted to change the men. He just the athletic director sort of assumed because I was a guy that I'd want to coach the guys team. The reality was I never coached men. I didn't coach them I coached a little bit of junior high boys, grade 8 to 9, for a few years. And then I changed over even at my junior high, I changed over to the girls team. And so it's been a long time since I had coached boys, so I didn't really have any interest in that and have never looked at or pursued men's jobs at all. I don't consider myself a men's basketball coach at all in any way.
Well, and I think, you're part of this, especially in Alberta, of the women's basketball movement. And I think that's something that, you can definitely, put your hat on over as you've been a crucial part as this women's game has really grown the past decade. You've been on the forefront and one of the main people of that forefront movement.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. I think, we're really proud of the Pebble League that we created for the U15, U17 level and the youth side. I'm really proud of the time I had with provincial team and mentoring coaches after not doing provincial team, like on the court, just mentoring afterwards has been a lot of fun. And I get a lot of joy in helping that next generation of coaches too, and making sure they're committed to the right things for their athletes. It's a big joy in my life as a coach right now too.
And I'm going to wrap it up now with a personal side for me. What's your favorite story about my sister that you can share that would maybe embarrass her?
Oh, yeah. For those that don't know her, says his sister. I've got too many, but
when you talked about personalities, I was like kind of grinning ear to ear on that side.
Yeah, well, she is. When I talk about that and people ask me about recruiting, I do often, even to this day, still think of Katie and going through recruiting with her. When
you started a family, Scott. You pulled her away from UFC and started a family. And that's got to be, I mean, you've done that with a few women. I'm sure that's kind of one of the cool things for you.
Yeah, it's been really cool to watch, especially now that they're getting older and you see like even your sister posting pictures of the little ones over in England.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing to see the joy that they have in their family. There's a hard time picking one story about your sister that's really funny, but I do remember being on a road trip. We were in Vancouver with provincial team, so I'll do this one. Maybe it was even with the Pandas. I'm not sure, but it was after the Ricky Bobby movie came out, the Talladega Nights, and she got interviewed on the beach. I don't know why we were down in English Bay, and she got interviewed on the beach, and she started doing the stupid not knowing what her hands to do with her hands, and the person interviewing her is like, "What are you doing?" And she's just killing herself. So yeah, that one stuck out for me a lot. But I mean, every day with her was a challenge. Like you never knew what touch she was going to come in like, or what kind of stupid story she was going to have, or things she was going to get after. And I think at the end of the day, I'm not saying it's just because I'm on your podcast. I'd say it to you off the air or with your family too. She's by far one of my favorite athletes I've ever gotten a chance to coach, and certainly something special in my life. And I'm glad to have all of you in my life, actually.
Appreciate that, Scotty. And hopefully that national championship is coming your way soon.
I hope so too.
Yeah. And good luck to your Red Sox until they face the Jays in the playoffs and will become enemies.
Appreciate that. You're dead to me then.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you to Scott. Until next time, folks, cheers and enjoy the day.